Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and notes mashup video today, starting with OLEKSANDR USYK and Anthony Joshua coming face to face in Saudi Arabia. And this is the opening press conference for the rematch, which will be in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, August 20th. So a couple of comments from Joshua and Usyk, which we'll get to. The first one from Anthony Joshua. So he says he's made the necessary changes.
Took my loss, but it's important to take it like a man. I held myself accountable. I addressed my issues. I've made the changes necessary, and I'm working hard. The task is a difficult task. This is heavyweight championship boxing. It's not easy, but we're going to bring entertainment. I'm sure Usyk's working hard, I'm working hard. I'm working on my strengths, I'm working on my weaknesses. So when I come August 20th, I have a all-round game, and the goal is not defense, the goal is not attack, the goal is just to win.
So moving on to the press release proper, and you can see here outside face to face. What we'll do is we'll just get to a couple of comments. We'll just get past Hearn and some of the other people. Usyk himself says, I'm very happy to be here in Saudi Arabia. It's very pleasant for me and my team. We are doing what we have to do to achieve our goals. I've never made any loud or bright speeches. To become heavyweight champion, all I did was work hard in my training camp and gym. That's what I'm going to do until the day of the fight, and my boxing will make me happy. And if we just scroll past the promoters, getting down to Joshua, since we've already heard a clip from him, we'll just keep it brief on him. He says, I just want to say God is good all the time, even through tough times. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. Definitely the hunger is still there. As I always said from the get-go, stay hungry. Just keep the motivation high. Blips happen. Things happen in life, but resilience, mental toughness, and consistency will always prevail. We're still on the road. We're still on the road to the undisputed for sure. It's just a little blip in the road, but I'm focused on the target, which is sitting over there. And then he points to Usyk. Okay, so we'll just go down to Robert Garcia. So he's been brought into Joshua's training camp. He says he's the bigger man. He's the stronger man. He's got the reach advantage. So we are going to take advantage of all that. Come that day, I think without a doubt, we're going to have a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. We've got to be prepared for everything. Usyk is a great fighter. He's got skills, reflexes, accuracy. He's got everything. I think Anthony has the tools to beat him. We just have to do the things in the gym. So we'll sort of cut it off there. So in terms of press releases, all that sort of stuff, pretty sort of standard. Obviously with this fight being in Saudi Arabia, and it's reported this is a record site fee, something like £80 million, $80 million, I can't remember which one, but more than the Ruiz Jr. rematch for Joshua in 2019, reportedly a 50-50 split between the fighters. But the issue of Saudi Arabia and sports washing did come up at the presser, and Joshua responded, I don't know what that is. I'm here to win the heavyweight championship of the world. I like Saudi. I think Saudi's good. I'm having a good time here. I'm treated really well. All that allegation stuff for me, I'm not caught up in any of that stuff. I'm here to have a good time, mix with the local people, bring entertainment to Saudi. And I guess if you were to describe what a sports person who was accused of being in sports washing would say, it would basically be what Joshua repeated there. So make of it what you will. Some people not happy with the fight taking place in Saudi Arabia, but it is what it is at this point. Moving on, so you've got Andy Ruiz Jr., Luis Ortiz locked in for the 4th of September. So I'll do another video on this, sort of talking about the fight in a separate video to this one, but there was a press release which was issued, and it talks about the tickets going on sale for that fight September the 4th. Moving on, so this is also Andy Ruiz Jr. related. So he's been in Mexico and involved in a Guinness World Record sort of fitness class. More than 14,000 people, as it says here in the comment, took part, beating the old record. And Ruiz Jr. for a fight a couple of months out, He looks in, decent shape for Andy Ruiz Jr. No doubt will obviously be, well, maybe not. I mean, who knows? It's Ruiz, but could trim a bit down further. Joyce has been spraying his wrath about the heavyweight division and different fighters all across town. So talking of Joshua here, saying he talks about staying hungry, but the world can see he's not hungry anymore for boxing. He's a businessman more interested in lecturing students. But he says if by some miracle Joshua beats Usyk, he will have to face me or vacate the belt. His chin has gone, and I don't think his heart is fully in the game anymore. He always talks about staying hungry, but the world can say, okay, that's the other part of that quote. Just note, though, that Joyce is not the WBO mandatory yet. He has not been announced as that. He's the number one ranked contender. There is a difference. There was talk of Joseph Parker, who was behind him in the WBO rankings. If they fought, that would determine the mandatory. So, I mean, I think probably he will become the mandatory, but not just yet. So, saying that Joshua has to face him, well, it's not quite there just yet. And of Dillian Whyte, he says, we all know he loves being a mandatory. Well, come and fight me and you get to the chance to be mandatory again. Also of Joseph Parker, and I will do a separate video to this one. You've had Frank Warren and Joseph Parker going on TalkSports. Some interesting things coming out of that, which I'll cover in another video. But Joyce on Parker signing with Sky and Boxer, a rival outfit to Frank Warren and BT, says of Parker, he bottled it. Plain and simple. He didn't want the fight, no matter who he fights next. The fans know he ducked Joyce. And he goes into a little bit more depth, saying, Parker ducked me. Why would you sign with another promoter and another TV channel if you actually want the fight? And then it goes into part of that quote again. He says, demand after demand, he was given it. I liked the fight as it was WBO number 1 verse 2. When he was about to sign, he told us his trainer was having a child, so he couldn't train him. Then for another month, him and his manager played games, delayed, and then last week he signed with another promoter. I honestly think that after he faced off with me at Wembley Stadium in April, backstage, he didn't like what he was staring back at him. No matter who he fights next, the fans know he ducked Joyce. And I know that there are some avid Joseph Parker fans who say that the fight can get made because Parker has said the fight can still get made. And I will go into this in this other video, but as I have said, if you do sign with another promoter and another TV network, the chances of a fight getting made on BT and with Frank Warren for this fight, it's basically slim to none. And the final little spray from Joyce, he says he lost to Sean Porter in the amateurs. That Joyce that Usyk boxed in the World Series of Boxing was not the juggernaut. They put pillows on my fists. I guess also OLEKSANDR USYK was pretty polished as an amateur at that point. Joyce was pretty basic and still pretty raw. He got outboxed pretty badly. So OLEKSANDR USYK gets the win. That's almost 10 years ago. So Joyce is a much more complete fighter at this point. But Usyk is no joke. And the whole thing about Sean Porter and the amateurs, I mean, how long ago was that? 15 years ago? I mean, get over it. Okay, so moving on, you've got Jarrell Miller's promoters talking about Miller's return. And I didn't know if Dimitri Salita and Greg Cohen were still co-promoting Miller because Miller's been out for years, but obviously they still want to get paid and get their pound of flesh out of Miller, bearing in mind they lost out when Miller, took every drug under the sun and was out of the Anthony Joshua fight. Millions of dollars went away at that point, and he's had another ban because of a substance he took ahead of what would have been a Jerry Forrest fight in 2020. But in terms of Dimitri Salita, he says, I'm very excited about Jarrell's return to the ring. He's matured and refocused to establish himself at the top of the heavyweight division with his special Brooklyn spice. Jarrell is more than ready to answer all the questions, one fight at a time, inside the ring. So, I mean, he hasn't re-established himself at the top of the heavyweight division. He was on the brink of doing something 4 years ago, but obviously with his own stupidity, he let himself down. But that comment from Dimitri Salita about Brooklyn Spice, read the room. I mean, if this is deliberate, and I'll get on to Greg Cohen saying something similar, I think it's ill thought out, because Cohen says, it's been a long time and I'm proud to say that Jarrell has made good use of it over the last 2 years. He's more focused and dedicated than ever and will undoubtedly re-inject some more excitement into the heavyweight division. It's time to get back to work. So saying he's going to re-inject after he was caught injecting himself with EPO and HGH and Brooklyn Spice, which you could take to, is this some sort of play on words for his extra curricular activities, which led to 2 consecutive periods out of the ring? Remembering these guys lost out big when Miller was out, so everyone's taking L's here. So if this is some sort of play on words about his, reference to his former drug use, it's, it's weird and bizarre that you'd even try to joke about it, given you've lost out big as well. But we know he's still being promoted by these guys, so I guess that's, make of it what you will. And those comments, yeah. Lucas Browne, so he's open to a fight with Daniel Dubois, reposting a story that was in The Sun, which sort of talked about Browne feared hurting his sparring partners with right hands. That was something he'd said after his fight with Junior Fa, that he was now letting his right hand go, and something he hadn't been looking to do. And it's one of those things that, because he won and he's sort of saying that, I know some people are eating it up and sort of saying, oh, he's back, he's good, he's going to, be able to make some noise and do some things. But that's like a way to reposition yourself and try to play down and minimize those losses to the likes of Dillian Whyte, Dave Allen, Paul Gallen, looking washed against Whainga Opilo before Ipilu gassed. It is one of those things. It's trying to say I was holding back. So make of that what you will, but of a fight with Daniel Dubois, because someone actually asked him, when's the fight happening? And he said, no idea, it's just a thought. That's a pretty dangerous fight for Lucas Browne, being a guy over 40 and being hittable, and Daniel Dubois having power. But as we saw, he's still got something in those hands of his, and the power is the last to go. Moving on to Frank Warren, who talks about Daniel Dubois of this recent sort of rise to the WBO inverted commas world champion, beating Trevor Bryan recently. He says, we're talking about patience. This has been off and on, messed around for a long time now. Sometimes you've got to bite the bullet and get on with it. Daniel was patient, and he's in the position he's in now. And I guess it's Joe Joyce also being very patient, more patient than Daniel Dubois, given he beat Dubois and is seemingly nowhere at this point. Argon Smakici has called out Fabio Wardley on social media, and actually it was a Instagram story, but I missed being able to screenshot it. But he said, look, I'll sign the deal to fight you in July. And actually, if that fight happened, I don't mind it. I think that's quite good. You can see here on screen, Smakici on the right-hand side. Recently, he fought and stopped Lenroy Thomas, and I think that's a sort of decent level for both guys. And with Smakici, there's a question mark about the chin. He was iced by Zan Kosabutski a few years ago. That's seemingly, I think, a reasonably well-matched fight for both those guys at this point. And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video, so the curious case of the German heavyweight Petr Cardero, who was being pushed for a time, seemingly a little off the radar now. He's tried to change his style from being uber defensive and technical. He's tried to reinvent himself a little bit, but he's obviously been given time to do it. So he's been facing guys with like 2-0 records and getting wins. So over this past weekend, another win. He says 14-0, another win. And yeah, but who you're facing, a guy with a 2-0 record, and it was a 2-0 record last time out as well. So they're obviously, with his age and trying to sort of retool his style, trying to take things easy and slowly, because there was a fight a few fights ago, I'm just trying to remember who it was against, might have been Redzovich, or was it Gorst, and was it Boris Estenfeld? It was one of those guys, and it was just a really betwixt and between in terms of what he was trying to do. He wanted to be aggressive, but then he was defensive, and he just couldn't seem to make things click. So obviously been given the time to do it. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.